Hey, I'm back. Look at that. There's the Jeep. That's my Dart. Back behind it's the Cutlass. Well, what do you think? I don't know. You don't think a whole lot. This is the Dart. It's got quite an interesting story on it. Went down to Tennessee, all places, and bought this one. It's a 270 slant 6. Well, it's a 225 slant 6. The model is a 270. The guy had it lowered. Gross. I don't like it. Too low. Scraped on everything on the way back. Bouncing all over the place. But it's a pretty sweet rig. No rust. Interiors, I'd say, pretty decent. Seats just got redone. All the door cards, everything are there. I mean, it's kind of complete. That back window don't roll down. It's probably the only thing that I might consider fixing besides the radio. Radio's kaput. I'm gonna probably order. They make looks exactly the same one, but it's got Bluetooth. It'd be nice for just cruising around, hanging out, having that option. It's pretty stock, I'd say, besides the 2-inch lower. I'm planning on bringing her back up. Taking these blocks out. The front has 2-inch lowering spindles or something. I'm gonna replace them with factory ones. No rust though. It's really straight. No big dents, I'd say. There's a couple dents up in the front hood, but pretty minor. All the trim's a little faded. Whatever. But really decent rig. Love it. I'm gonna get some bigger meats on there. Probably pop them off today. Figure out how to get that. I don't know. I've never done stuff with suspension and steering components and whatever. The other reason it's up on jack stands right now is probably gonna try and tackle the leaks it's got. It's got a bit of a engine leak, oil leak, and I think the transmission leaks too. I don't know. I haven't looked too deep into it yet. Just put it up on jack stands. But pretty fun ride coming back from Tennessee. Had 2 buddies go with me, Kyle and Hunter. Probably see them in a future video, maybe. Hunter actually, he said he'd come out for one of these. But there's the Jeep, really decent rig from Idaho if I didn't say so. This is the Cutlass, gutless Cutlass. It's got quite the story to her. Talked with the lady for a good hour on it when I went and looked at it. This one's from Utah, so nothing really for rust on this thing either. Really decent, really solid rig. It's got a 350 small block in it. Apparently hopped up a bit. I could probably do a compression test and whatever and look at more casting numbers and maybe pull it apart a bit to figure it out. But planning on just fixing the power steering leak with this thing. It's got a little bit of leakage from there. Fixed up the thermostat housing with some JB Weld, like a professional. There's a bit of a hole that had like pitted out in the intake manifold. That was kind of weird, but it's also got a bit of a tranny leak. Nothing doesn't leak around here. Everything I own does, but just means I always got something to do, I guess. Interior is really nice in this thing as well. So the story on it is she drove it. It was her car to drive, but her husband owned it. His name was on the title or whatever. But she drove it a bunch, then she didn't drive it a bunch. Stopped driving it really, and it was kind of just sitting there. And she was gonna sell it to her grandson, but he didn't have a place to put it, or I don't know. They didn't want to let it go, but they knew they had to. The lady, she just, it's going to a new home. She was happy to sell it to me. But pretty fun ride back from Utah. I'll never forget that one. That was 1,500 some miles. Took 2.5 days just because I don't know. Once it got dark, I just pulled into a hotel and went to bed. Wasn't in a rush really to get back. It's a, well, specifically, it's a 1967 Cutlass Supreme. But pretty sweet rig, newer paint, 10, 15 years old in the paint. Just had the vinyl top put on, new meats. Rides really smooth, really straight too. I mean, I was on the highway doing 70 to 90 miles an hour the whole way back. Kind of depended on what song I was listening to, I guess. He had to go outside for the next vehicle. Just bought this from my cousin. Well, that sled I bought from him too. But it's a 2002 Volkswagen Golf. Nothing special. Just daily beater. Gets good mileage. I don't know. Nothing too fancy. It's got a sunroof. First vehicle I've owned that's got a sunroof. But yeah, I don't know. Came from California. Not a whole lot of rust. Pretty decent rig. Coming back over here to the Dart. I got plans. At least, I don't know. I wish I had plans. But I got a rough outline of what I want to do with this thing. I'd love to, well, let me start off. It's like 95% stock. I've been told, don't do nothing to it. His value's gonna drop. Bad idea. And I was like, well, mostly young, dumb-ish, and love more power. Who don't? So I want to put the 383 I bought, picture right about now. Okay. But I'd love to put the 383 in here, get a little more ponies up in this joint. Maybe swap the rear end out for, well, actually, I think it is 8 3/4. Maybe it ain't. I don't know. The guy did a couple things to it, but besides lowering it, and I don't know if he did I'd have to go back and look at the photos I got. I got kind of a sheet of stuff he did to it, but I'd love to put the 383 in here, tub the rear, of course, get some big old meats back there, and basically make it a loud machine. Big, mean, loud machine with 4 doors, because why not? Coming in hot. Watch out. I'm gonna do a little bit of work on this thing. Just chip at it for 10 minutes. I'm gonna pull drive shafts, kind of get this thing, I don't know. I'm gonna take a little bit of stuff off, get it on jack stands. The engine pulling's for another day. That'll be a separate video in itself, but do a little work on this thing. Here's a little time lapse. Well, I got front and back drive shafts off. Not too tricky, pretty easy. One was a little froze up. I don't know, I couldn't get the gutter to slide back, and then I had to cut one of the bands off that was on a boot, but went pretty good. Got this thing draining oil right now. Probably gonna leave that under there for a while, until I pull the engine and everything, of course, but yeah, I think that's it for working on the Jeep today.